What are you talking about, chap?
No,
there's a
because
time and a place, Baxter, for sports etiquette and gentlemanly
It's technical
engaging.
arrogance. That's what it is.
yeah, the room for error is slight. And you look at Suzuka, you look at Imola, and that's where he's been at his absolute best this season. And he'll be there or thereabouts, provided Red Bull give him a good car.
Mexico 21, probably even worse. I'm like, yes, Lewis has smashed it. There's no way that he's going to come around both those black Mercedes of Lewis and Valtteri Bottas. And then, what?
Yeah.
It's Baxter, let me come to you, chap. Was that the best T1 overtake of Maximilian Verstappen's career? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown Podcast. With me as always, my brethren, my colleagues, my peers, my right honourable colleagues, the one that they call Sir Baxter and the one that they call the A-side, aka Shazina. How are we doing, chaps? It doesn't matter how you're doing because there are very many F1-centric threads at which we need to pull. Talk to me, Sir Baxter, in the first instance, as our resident Maximilian Verstappen hater. How did you characterise the instance, the turn one overtake, Maximilian Verstappen round the outside, manipulating an RB21 in and on and around the limits of adhesion, sir?
I mean, at the time when you see it, you're like, that's a great move. Like, bloody hell, has he done that? And then you kind of, when you dig down into it, you think, well, hang on a minute. He kind of had nowhere else to go other than to send it. And he had to rely on a few things going his way. So the first was Oscar Piastri braking 10 metres too early, which he openly admitted to. The second one was that if he tried to tuck in behind Oscar, there was a giant Mercedes of George Russell in his way. So it's like, well, might as well just go for it. And he went for it and it came off. I think if Oscar brakes where he would normally have braked, we may have seen some contact between them. But, sometimes in sport, things just go your way. And, it looked spectacular, but when you dig down into it, you're like, okay, it's a good move, kind of forced into it by necessity, but it's what he needed to have happen to win the race. And
boo that man. Baxter, how very dare you minimise the greatness of Maximilian Verstappen turn
with
one.
logic.
Unbelievable. Forced into it. You sound like Damon Hill out here, Baxter. Bloody Nora. You know what the joke is, mate? Let me take off my Max Verstappen cap for a second. I hear you. I do hear you. It was in some ways he was a victim of circumstance, but bloody Nora Baxter, he's still got to go and execute for it. Break
no, absolutely.
10
I mean,
later than Oscar Piastri, keep it on the island and make sure that he doesn't lock up any of the wheels. I mean,
100%. Like, he deserves credit for that, and I think the greatness in his performance wasn't that overtake; it was the way he drove that race and controlled that race. Like, yeah, you can talk about safety cars and stuff, but that happens, like safety cars benefit drivers all the time. We've seen him be on the wrong side of it, on the right side of it. We've seen other drivers, but he drove brilliantly in that race. Didn't put a foot wrong. He seems to really be at his best this year when the car is at one of these tracks where the room for error is slight. And you look at Suzuka, you look at Imola, and that's where he's been at his absolute best this season. And I do think he'll go well in Monaco, whether he wins or not. I'm not so sure, but he'll be there or thereabouts, provided Red Bull give him a good car.
I mean, Baxter, Monaco's nothing if not a driver's track now. So again, if he's had his Weetabix and he plays his way into the crease with an RB21 that can all of a sudden brake around low minimum speed turns and turn around low minimum speed turns, then...
I mean, it's an odd phenomenon that Red Bull have had this year, that they are always crap on a Friday and then progressively get better. But it's the key to Max's success has been how much better can they get. So we saw in Suzuka, they really turned it around. They got it in that narrow window that he can exploit. The same in Imola as well. And there have been other races where he was strong, but not the car wasn't quite in that absolute peak optimum window of performance, and it meant that the McLarens, like in Miami, could just drive away from him regardless of his great performance on a Saturday where he was able to take pole. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Obviously we've got the 2 pit stop thing happening, which I'm sure we'll get to.
we'll touch
Yeah,
on it, chap.
but yeah, I'll be excited to see how he goes. I think it's going to be tight between him and a few others.
Thou shalt never back against Max Verstappen as at the 22nd of the 5th 2025. Shaz, talk to me about turn one, because I tried to phone you and you don't pick up my calls anymore, mate. You're too famous. How do you characterise that turn one overtake of Mr. Four, soon to be 5-time champion, Maximilian Verstappen?
Well, first of all, thanks for that nice little look behind the curtain, Cameron.
Peel back the fourth wall, why don't?
Mate, I'm all for this. It takes two to tango. Yes, Oscar, maybe you could have braked a bit later. You could have given a little less room on the exit. Sure, all those things could happen, but ultimately, Max was coming from about like three races ago into that corner, and he did his usual thing where he was able to turn it in, and where other drivers might have found themselves in the gravel trap, he found himself just hugging the outside white line.
Go on then,
and zooming off into the distance.
Apologies for interrupting you impromptu.
Yeah.
But how and why, chap, as a man that's immersed himself in the god tier Mark Hughes documentary biography, even Unstoppable, what is it about Max in particular? Obviously, he did a reconnaissance laps, 4 laps of them, and he understood the parameters within which he was operating as far as that. But what is it specifically, chap? Because you're more invested in this sporting endeavour par excellence story than I. What is it specifically?
I mean, I think it is slightly different on a overtaking lap versus a standard racing lap, right? Like the way that he's going to approach the corner in a qualifying lap even is not going to be the same as how he approaches it to overtake someone, because he's not taking the optimum line. But what he's able to do is brake super late, still get the car rotating. I think what he has been doing is turning in a bit earlier to get the car started, then hitting the brakes super late. You saw how far back he came from, and because he's already got it turned in, he's starting to do that thing where he knows that even though the rear end of it is trying to spin him into the Tamburello wall, he's able to kind of trust it anyway, so that once turned in, hard on the brakes to get even more rotation, bang, he's put it on the outside white line without troubling the gravel trap at all. And poor old Oscar Piastri, who said afterwards, like, I didn't know he was there. I didn't know how the heck he came. He got around the outside of me. I didn't even know that he was coming. And ultimately, yes, that's because Oscar was defending George Russell, who could have gone down the inside, but also because Max was coming from so far back and did all of the things that we've just talked about to get the car turned in on the white line, not taking the optimal line, but able to do enough to take that tiny little bit of space that Oscar gave him. Outstanding move. But one of the things that made me think about this, and look, I don't want to like shoot too far ahead, but there's something about practice that comes into this. And I was thinking of a quote from
subject, a bit of nurture.
I do love nurture. And the thing is, but we're seeing this in real time. So do you remember that pilot that landed his plane on the Hudson River after a bird strike?
Sully. Captain Sully, yeah.
Yeah, they made a movie about him. So he said this thing right after that event, because somebody asked him, like, how did you have the wherewithal to land your plane in the Hudson River? And he said, look, I have been making deposits into the bank of experience for like the entirety of my career, and on that day I just made a massive withdrawal from that bank. And that what we're seeing from Max in all of the first lap moves that he does, and we're going to talk about them, but Spain 21, Mexico 21, Japan 22, all of those moves, and some of them are a bit easier than others given the width of the track and the number of cars he's up against. They're all building up experience. All of the things that he needs to do in a first corner when he's heavy, the tires are cold, he doesn't know quite what the grip is going to be when he launches into that first corner. All of those things he's built up over time to be able to make that move on that day against two cars on the inside on a track that's not no wider than a goat track. That's the genius of Max Verstappen, is that he doesn't forget. He's able to draw on everything that he's learned every race he goes into, and it's you're seeing the results of that every single day.
He's not too bad, that chap. He's not too bad. And it was to my disappointment that when I did my reconnaissance of the podcast post the Imola Grand Prix, it felt very dour almost. Like the sentiment, I mean, I'm out here losing my head, like literally pulling out my hair at the brilliance and the excitement of the Grand Prix, and it was stakes and it was the McLaren. Like, I'm just like, oh my, this is bonkers. And then the old media gets on the bloody podcast, and when they're reviewing it, they sound like they're falling, like they can barely get the words out. I'm like, what? Am I watching something different? Even Tomo, bless him, like when he put out his poll for how good the Grand Prix was, everyone was like 4s or 5s. I was like, what?
No, it's better than that.
I just thought I was, maybe it's just me. Maybe I am a Max Glazer proper. Go on then, tell me, Shares, whether that was the best turn one overtake of Maximilian Verstappen's career in a couple words or less.
I'm going to say yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. And I know you have got a few other contenders on that list that you think might be better. But in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, like what he had to do in these cars on that track against those opponents, I think is pretty impressive. And unlike some of the others, the other moves that we can talk about, Mexico maybe accepted. Often there's a little bit of runoff on the outside to help you out, and he just didn't have that here. To skip the gravel and just head off into the distance. Because I saw that move, and given what I've seen of first laps over the past few years, I thought there was either going to be an accident or one of them was going to end up in the gravel.
Shazinho, I will see you that, sir, and raise you this. I'm streaming it, and I just thought that he's going to. There's no way that he can come higher than. You can't exit that turn, Barriente de Alta, in a better position than second at best. At best, that's me being optimistic for Max. There was no way that he was going to get round Oscar Piastri, knowing what we know about him. Baku 24, Monza, Italian Grand Prix 24, like his ability to position that car in a way that's clinical and forensic. No chance. Baxley, let me come to you, chap. Was that the best T1 overtake of Maximilian Verstappen's career?
No, not for me. I prefer Spain 21 because he'd lost the momentum was on Lewis's side at that point, and then Spain was very much a Mercedes track. Everyone knew it's like, well, you're going to Spain, Mercedes are going to win, Lewis is going to win by 40 minutes, and be fine. And then you've got the long run down to turn one, and then Max just decides to send it from Belgium. Absolute clean pinpoint, and this is Mercedes still at the peak of their powers, and Lewis, kind of going like, oh, hello, where do you come from? And obviously, I feel like people take the shine off that move because he didn't win the race. People look at this one and go, well, that's the move that won in the race. They hold it in a higher regard, but I think as an executed move, I would say that Spain 21 was better, because that was just bold. Okay, I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to shock him here. He's not going to expect me to do that, so I'm just going to shock Lewis and go into turn one and push him. But because he didn't win the race, people don't remember it as fondly.
Oof. So Baxley in fine linguistic form as per usual. But I would see both of you your picks and raise you this. I think you both are smoking something different, chaps. I'll be honest with you. There is no way in this world or any other that the best Maximilian overtake into turn one is not 2022 Suzuka round the outside of Charles Leclerc. I know what you're going to tell me, Baxter.
We've had this
from pole, and that's true. But if we're taking the overtake on its merits, there is no way. under the present parameters of the laws of physics as they exist, that dude should be able to take that car on a full tank of fuel round the outside of bloody Charles Leclerc, says your guy, and then puts 2 left wheels on the white bits as if that shouldn't spin his car like it makes no. I don't know. I have nothing else to say. Prosecution.
My one thing about that is I don't consider that to be an overtake as such. I just consider that to be racing capability in basically what was a drag race in the wet. Like as a maneuver, as a sort of racing nous, unbelievable. Like just incredible that to have the trust to be able to know I'm going to put my car here and I'm going to come out of it on a track like Suzuka when it's absolutely pissing it down with rain as well. I mean, those conditions were horrible.
100%.
But I don't consider it to be an overtake because they were pretty much level at that point. You know, he'd had a bad start from pole and Charles was trying to get him into turn 1, but it was just, just brilliant racing rather than an overtake.
I don't know, Baxley, I think going into the turn, they were level, but only because Max did as he did last Grand Prix, right, and was Harry Flatters and last of the late breakers. I tell you why I think that, not dissimilar to Imola, you're just watching that and you're just thinking, there's no way. This is like a black swan of a tail event. There's no way that this dude is going to have the audacity to think, oh, he's done it again. It's like he's done it again. Like at the time, it's not going to happen.
It's incredible racing, though. I'd say his best wet weather opening lap was Brazil last year.
Fair.
But are you saying that though because at the time in Japan he hadn't done what he just done in Imola, and in Imola you're getting a bit of first lap, first corner Max Verstappen fatigue.
No, I don't think it is, Shaz. I don't think it is. I'm taking each one of them on their own merits. There's no cumulative credibility that is building up for me. I'm just looking at these things, given what we know about Max, even as brilliant as he was in 2020. You know what I mean? Even with those things, these are just like red, black swan events. I can barely conceive of them, let alone expect to see somebody execute for them. It just makes no sense.
So now what we're trying to do is trying to separate very excellent from very excellent, right? Like how do you tell those two things apart?
We're splitting hairs, aren't we?
Right, yes, and that's the thing. But I would go back to what Baxley said. Being on pole means you're on the better line going into turn 1 in Suzuka. You're on the side of the track that has a bit more grip anyway. And you're only up against one car. Yes, that one car is Charles Leclerc, but he's also driving in the wet as well. There weren't like 2 cars on the inside. There wasn't the tiny width of the track that there was at Imola. And I think physics helped him a little bit more in Japan than they did in Imola. He wasn't coming from as far back as he was in Japan, as he was in Imola either. So there are a few things that helped him out there, but again, that's making it sound like I think that Japan was easy. I'm not saying that. This is just me trying to differentiate between 2 great moves in the first corner on turn 1.
I think of just this again, leveraging my old grey.
It's all personal preference, isn't it?
I'm just leveraging the fact that I think each of us have got like a not insubstantial data bank as far as F1 experience, and I'm watching that and I'm like, I'm writing it off, even as brilliant as I know Max to be, like the Imola overtake and then the 2022 Suzuka and Mexico 21 probably even worse. I'm like, yes, Lewis has smashed it. There's no way that he's going to come around both those black Mercedes of Lewis and Valtteri Bottas, and then what?
Yeah. Bottas just waving him through.
I mean, to be fair, he made a habit of it that season, didn't he?
It just makes no sense. Anyway.
And to be fair, in Mexico, you can do that, though, because he did it like to the Ferraris in 2023, and he did it to... Did he do it to Lando last year? I can't remember.
Yeah, but
he did it to Lando and Carlos last year.
Yeah, but
it's so easy to do that in Mexico. He's done it to Danny Rick in the past before.
I disagree, Baxter. This is revising it because again, I don't think I'm not the greatest F1 mind, but I'm. Do you know what I mean? I know a little bit enough to know that that my confidence wasn't unfounded in Lewis Hamilton's ability to get into turn one at Mexico in 2021 first, given that
I
he
knew
had...
Max. No, I would have put money on Max being. Yeah, I said I was listening on the radio with my dad. My dad and I had been doing something, and he was driving away, and I said, I guarantee Verstappen will be leading into turn one because he will just sit in their gearbox, get the toe, and then slingshot himself into the lead, which helped when I then looked at it. It was like, well, Bottas has done him a massive favour there.
Yeah. Because essentially what Max has done is taken the optimum line into that corner where Lewis is pinched in by two separate cars into the apex. So he can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I still find it perverse that it was Bottas that got himself spun around.
What a clown. Don't even get me started. But if there is someone culpable. Anyway, let's not even. Go on then, lads. Should we talk about this McLaren? How much have you guys been paying attention to this McLaren shenanigans? Everybody's saying that McLaren's advantage is by dint of their ability to minimise, no mitigate for the rate at which their tyres deg. What is causing that? B Sport, the legend of YouTube, who worked at McLaren and did a thesis in phase change materials, said that might have something to do with it. Put those on your tyres and that can cool the tyre and wheel mechanism. Since that point, John Noble over at the race said that's not true. That the FI checked car 81 a couple of race weekends ago and found that everything in that wheel mechanism, double brake duct et al. Is within the rules as they are set as at the 22nd of the 5th 2025. And then John Noble goes through all of the protests that Red Bull, Christian Horner have lodged and discounts everything that has liquid in there because that's banned, and happens upon this thermoelectric cooling thing and says that that's the only thing. The FIA shut down every single one of Christian Horner's can we use this? Can we use this? Can we use this? Until you got to this thermo-cooling thing. And they were like, no, it's not can you or can't you. It's not necessarily within the rule, the way that we've written the rules, to which Christian Horner's like, let me ask you the question this way then, Shes. Because we saw the first race, Imola felt to me like the first race when Max has been able to match. Christian Horner said it this way, right, that they outdegged McLaren. Do you think, Shez, that had anything to do with McLaren's brake duct being found out and Red Bull potentially replicating for it?
Who knows? But I do love Red Bull. I love the ebb and flow of Red Bull. I've been watching a TV show called Andor recently. There's a fun little line in one of the episodes where one of the evil empires say that they can basically turn any kind of propaganda into whatever they want, right? They can just spin a line and make anyone believe whatever they want. That is what Red Bull are able to do. Like, Imola is the one track where you've got fast and medium speed corners, which is what Red Bull want. Check. They've got fewer lower speed corners that help out on traction, which is what the McLaren wants. So they don't have what they want. Check. And Max has done the one thing he needs to do to be able to control the race and manage his tyres, which is get into the lead on the first lap and never give it up again. Clean air the whole way. Check. So all of those things are there helping Red Bull. Plus, he's got a little bit of an upgrade that's helped out with the new floor that they put in and that they introduced at the last race as well. So there's a bit of a balance here between, is it Red Bull getting a bit better with their upgrade, or is it that McLaren have suddenly been held back by some phantom technical directive? But the key about this technical directive that was introduced before Imola was that it was essentially the FIA responding to particular questions that Red Bull were asking. They were asking very specific questions about the breakdown. What you're talking about, this thermoelectric Peltier thing, was something specifically that Red Bull asked, could it be this? But they're spitballing. They're trying to see what sticks when they ask these questions. They're not saying this is what McLaren have got. They're asking, could this be what McLaren have got? And or are we allowed to do this? And the brilliant thing about Red Bull, the way that the avenue that they use to gain performance that none of the other teams seem to be able to weaponize is that they're able to kind of off kilter and everybody else and misdirect. They will put on an upgrade that's successful on their car and still make themselves out to be the underdog by saying that, oh, is it McLaren that have got some weird thing on their brake duct that's making them look after their rear tyres? All the while, they're off in what they're calling the 10th fastest car on the grid, winning the race. Like, add those two things together. It's a standard ploy by Red Bull, and one that other teams probably should be using much more, but they don't. But that, I think, is what this is, and and what McLaren have been doing up until this point. It's just clever engineering, which is what the FIA said when they looked at that brake duct.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Shez. I think clever engineering as a term does this bloody thermoelectric cooling, a little bit of this. It's an injustice, isn't it? It's not just clever engineering, chap. This is this is the dark arts of Formula One, chap. This is double diffuser settings. It's more than just sound engineering, which is what
if that's what it is, though. They're not saying that's what's on the car. They're saying, well, could it be this? They don't actually have any evidence.
You're right. No, it's not definitive.
Because all Christian Horner and Red Bull have got is that the brake ducts on the McLaren were a bit cooler than everybody else's. That's it. Everything they're basing these theories on is based on that one bit of information that they had. Wow. But it's all just... So could it be that Red Bull are going, well, we want to have a Peltier on our rear brake duct, and they're asking the FIA if they're allowed to do it, and the FIA is saying, yeah, sure, if you want to, we're going to ban it next year, but you can have it for now.
Baxley, let me ask you the question this way, fella. Do you think that we are seeing the beginning of the end of McLaren's durable competitive advantage over the rest of the field in the 2025 season?
Maybe it's too early to tell. I think, Red Bull, they don't believe this in earnest, but they always seem to like present the fact that it's like, this is the silver bullet that's going to nerf our competition, and it never works. Like, Mercedes are only faster than us because they got an engine party mode, and then Mercedes, when they got that ban, Mercedes dunked on them hard, and then DAS is a problem, and then it's like, well, they're still competitive without DAS. And constantly just trying spicy rear wing, and then Mercedes go, yeah, go on then. you can put that test on it because there's nothing wrong with our rear wing. And then you've got now they're doing it with McLaren, and it's just like, why are you trying to drag people down to your level? Why don't you just better yourself?
Because it's a competitive tactic.
No, I know it's a competitive tactic. I just think it's bollocks.
I don't understand why other people don't do it. And the only time anyone has done it was in 21 when Lewis was talking about the rear wing on the Red Bull, and Christian Horner went ape about it. Like, oh my God, they're after us. They're going after us about our rear wing. That's exactly how a team principal should act.
That's the thing. Like, Red Bull do it all the time. It's like relentless barrage, whereas other team principals...
I see that as a positive.
I don't. I see it as a negative because it then creates the perception that you're just moaning all the time because you're not the fastest.
So what?
But then you got team principals like Toto, who I for my money is probably still the most powerful team principal on the grid. He's very clever with the way he wields that power. So like when he sees something, he's like, that rear wing isn't right.
What's he going to do? Say, Michael, can you go look at this email that I just sent you?
Mate.
There was that, but you got you're picking one thing here, but
it's not just one thing.
What I'm saying is, he goes, right, that rear wing isn't right, and he just kind of flexes his muscles a little bit, and they look at it and they go, yeah, that's illegal. And then they go, and then in 2022, he's like, yeah, this porpoising's a problem, and he was I have it printed out.
Baxter, I feel like you did. No, I read that Toto, the boy who cried wolf room, completely differently. I think he looked like a numpty with that bloody printout on the Netflix thing. What are you talking?
But he got his way. That's the thing.
Think he got
his way.
No, well, kind of in the end, but the rest of it, 2021. Let's be honest.
No.
Hang on, 1 second here, because we've got to deal with this Toto, the boy who cried wolf thing before I lose my mind. Chaps, all the way through 2021, he got outmaneuvered and outflanked by Christian Horner. That's the truth of the matter. Christian Horner went 10 toes down into 21. They raced hard, turned round his cap, got in the face of Michael Massey with a view to gain an advantage.
Still lost the Constructors' Championship.
Well, I mean, does anybody care really? But if you didn't say that, Baxter, if you hadn't said that, I probably would have remembered who won the Constructors in 2020. All I'm saying to you is this, Baxter. Toto Wolff got destroyed by Christian Horner that year. There was no way that Red Bull should have won that driver championship. They just shouldn't have, even with Max doing these Max things, they shouldn't have. But Toto was weak and allowed Christian Horner to outflank him at every single juncture. There was Silverstone. He had a good chance to get some get back at Monza the couple of weeks after that. And what did he do? Oh no, well whatever the race director comes up with, we'll follow that. What are you talking about, chap?
No,
there's a time and a place, Baxter, for sports etiquette and gentlemanly
it's technical
engaging.
Arrogance. That's what it is. They think that they think that Toto and the Mercedes engineering team just felt that they could engineer themselves out of any protest that was sent their way. That the indictment of that is allowing the FIA to test their rear wing with a test that wasn't even in the regulations. Like, Lewis was out there saying, "What the heck are you doing?" And they're like, "Well, no, we'll pass it anyway." That's not the point. It's not the point.
Mate, outrageous. I'll never forgive Toto for the way that he almost willfully left lap time on the table. And at the altar of sports etiquette. And sometimes, Baxter, you'll understand as a rugby player, right? Sometimes you've got to get in there and rock and roll. Now, sometimes you have to rock and roll. Like, do you know what I mean? Sometimes you've got to roll up your sleeves.
I see what you mean, yeah. I don't play rugby.
Oh, fair play. You've got to roll up your sleeves when you watch it. You've got to roll up your sleeves and get in there and just get on there. Do something dirty and make something happen. And Toto was all here, and it was all very gentlemanly and C-suite executive level at the AGM of Mercedes. Do you know what I mean? It was all up here. Meanwhile, down here, you got Christian Horner cheating and scraping and bending and breaking the rules. Sometimes, chap, you've got to meet your competitor where they stand, and Toto wasn't ready to do that. I would still contend, had he done that in 2021, things could have been very different about your divesting your design philosophy portfolio and concentrating on 22. Do you not know that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush? What's he do? I'll never forgive him. But anyway, as we ran third base, that's me. I'm going to have to go and get my blood pressure checked. How very dare you, Maxty? I've lost my mind here. My hair is turning grey and receding concurrently.
Oh, mate, that was my blood pressure yesterday when this was going on. So
at the very thought of it, yeah, it's a good shout. Shout out to Tottenham Hotspur. Did that even come out of my mouth? Shout out to Tottenham Hotspur. I am losing my mind. Gents, you guys have been go-tier than go-to things. Check out Shazina in the middle of your screen on the Tired GP podcast. Purple sectors each and every single time. Check out Baxty, Sir Baxty B, or have you know, on Shifting Happens and his own channel, Baxty B F1. If you're watching this on a podcasting platform, if you're watching this on the YouTubes, then like, comment and share as always. If you're listening to this on your favourite podcasting platform, then do me and yourself a favour, smash 5 stars and drop a follow. Between now and next time, the prosecution rests. No further questions. Your Honour.